Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame, where the Jazz traveled to Boston, got down big, climbed their way all the way back, and made a heck of a game of it, and it was exciting. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So the Jazz got down 24. I mean, they were down huge. But to give them credit, Brice played really well in reserve minutes, and they continued to play. They didn't give up, and they climbed their way all the way back in. And John Collins obviously had a whole bunch of points. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but he stuck with it, and then some of the threes started to go. At one point, he was 1 for 10 from three, but he made a couple. Some other shots started to go. Brice's shots started to go. Collin Sexton had a career night passing the ball with 13 assists. That I'm not sure if that's his high as a player, but I would say there's a pretty good chance that it is his high as a player. And that was a heck of a comeback. I'm happy they lost because I think the Jazz need to lose this game, but to come back and actually make a game of it and make it exciting and have all the guys on the bench cheering them on and wanting to win, I think it was really positive. And I'm happy for the guys that played tonight and played a lot of minutes. It seemed like they really wanted this game, and they almost pulled it off, in all honesty. And if they had won, I wouldn't have been really that upset about it.
I got to tell you, I found the whole game very odd. It just the rotations, the roles that people had, just everything. In a way, I'm surprised that they came back and almost won the game and tied it up, because I don't know. I felt like it was a really odd game. That was my takeaway from it. When we were down by so many points, I'm like, wow, this is weird how the rotations are and who's playing, etc. But they came back, and they fought. I thought that they would play a full roster, and they almost did tonight. So that did not surprise me. I thought that you're waiting for these games on the road against a good team where you can pull out all stops, and I think that they did that for the most part. So that was good. I mean, it was great to see Walker and Collins and Collin Sexton all playing. It would have been nice to see Larry playing as well, and Clarkson playing. But it was good to at least see three of the guys playing, which was good. But I don't know. Did you feel I just felt like there was a few things off in this game, and I can't really explain all of them, but a few of them I can. But did you have that feeling too?
Well, yeah, it didn't have a normal flow to it, and Collier again isn't really involved as the primary ball handler a lot tonight, which was especially with Keontae sitting out tonight. I mean, I'm assuming it's because of that sprained ankle that he kind of didn't really have, but it's Keontae. But it was weird. So there wasn't a normal flow to it, and I saw that the injury report that Markkanen was questionable for the game, and then Tatum was out, and so maybe they pulled Markkanen because they didn't want the entire Jazz roster without a full Boston roster. It's hard to know, because I know that John Collins was questionable too, and then he ended up playing, and obviously Sexton played. So, they played most of their big guys, and I'm glad that Clarkson didn't play. But yeah, it wasn't normal, and like I said, Collier isn't really running the show right now, as I would expect him to be, especially with Keontae out of the game, and he's still not. And so it's a little bit weird, but Collin ends up with 13 assists because of that. So, I mean, that's a really odd number for Collin. The typical Collin is not going to get 13 assists. Now, he also had 6 turnovers, which is a lot of turnovers, but the Jazz as a team didn't have a lot of turnovers, and they had a whole bunch of assists. And the assist to field goal ratio tonight was really good, really positive.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I wondered about. Is why is Collier not running the show? Because I took the view when Hardy promoted promoted Keontae 10 games into the last season, I thought that was odd over Collin Sexton. But now that we see Collier running the show as a true point guard with true point guard skills, you should be deferring to him, right? Because he's a better point guard than Collin by far. I think with Keontae versus Collin, I don't think that you necessarily should do that promotion. But some of, like Collin forced some, he had the turnovers because he forced some rolls in where he just kind of threw it up there. But, Hardy is like encouraging that, I think, for Collier as well. But I just didn't like, why is Collier not running the point? Because honestly, I think if Collier runs the point, we may have won this game, right? Because that is his real role versus just let Collin be Collin, which is an unbelievably good scoring off guard, undersized, but extremely talented. Just let him do that. Yeah, when you have an open pass it. But otherwise, I just didn't understand, like, why is Collier not running the show? And also, I felt like the other one I felt was kind of odd was Flip. Like Collins had 30 shots, 30 shots. Like, why is Flip not playing? The way he's been playing, like to me, if you play Flip as well as he's been playing with Collins and with Markkanen, it's really interesting, right? You got two guys that don't pass the ball, but you got, you have Flip who does pass the ball really well, but you have two of those three guys that can really stretch it just like Markkanen can. I was like, okay, why is Flip, down in minutes? So there were just like a few things I didn't really understand about the rotation, and maybe Hardy's just trying to like learn how it looks, but I felt like we could have put even a better foot forward if we would have played some normal roles and normal rotations.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's almost like since Collins hasn't played a lot lately and he's been sitting all these games, they're going to give him extra reps. So you're right. I mean, Filipowski didn't play a whole lot of minutes tonight. He didn't get a whole lot of opportunities. He didn't even record an assist because he just wasn't put in a position to record assists. And so that was all off. I mean, I don't mind him trying to maximize Collins' value. I still think he's probably going to opt out at this summer. There's all the whole who has money to pay him, but I think there's a really good chance he does opt out. And yeah, it's nice to give him all these shots, but you're right. That was too many shots. There are just too many shots. And he took a ton of threes. I mean, he ended up, how many three-pointers? He took 11 three-pointers tonight. I mean, 11 three-pointers for John Collins is a lot of three-pointers in a game. Oh, I don't know. It was a little odd. I don't understand. I think, especially since Kyle has been playing so well, to just like all of a sudden now he's back to sitting. I mean, that's a bit just, I mean, it's just weird. I don't know. The roles are so undefined at this point. It's just helter skelter, and it's just there's no feel to exactly what's going to happen from game to game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and we should go to the box score because I just felt the whole night in watching the game that the Jazz were out of sync, and that's why I'm surprised they came so close. Because I felt like they were out of sync the whole night. Now, they weren't hitting any of their 3-pointers until midway through the third quarter. They started to hit, and the Celtics announcers kept noting that teams got cold, etc. Collins was missing everything, but it's not like they were wildly off. They were just slightly off, right? And so then he started to hit some. But I just felt like they were out of sync, and I can't really put a finger on it other than Collier wasn't playing point guard, and Flip, who's now become part of the rotation, was out of the rotation.
Yeah. It really takes passing out of the game when Collier isn't like the primary initiator of the call, and then you also have Filipowski not in the game, who is very likely the second best passer on the entire team, and so. I mean, yeah, they did have a lot of assists tonight against really a nice turnover night as well. But yeah, right. I mean, there was just something, but they didn't shoot the ball particularly well at 45% for the game, 34% from three. I don't know. It's just it could have been better. I would still like them to play a more traditional style with Collier is the primary ball handler. When a different player besides Collier gets the rebound, they look to the wing, they pitch to the wing, and have him push the ball up the court, because he's by far the fastest guy, other than maybe Sexton, on the team with the ball in his hands, and Collier is one of the fastest guys in the league with the balls in his hands. So I would prefer that. Just pitch it to the wing, how they used to do with Stockton, with Eaton and whatever. Just pitch the ball to the wing, have him push the ball up the court. I think that's a better method moving forward. But I don't have any hopes that the Jazz are going to afterly shift to that model. I don't think they will, because I would much rather have that than one of the other, like Juzang, kind of get it, and he's not going to push it for easy offensive baskets, or one of these other guys who gets the rebound. So I'd rather him revert to that old system, pitch it to the wing and push it, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. And maybe in the second unit, if Kyle's in the second unit, let Kyle be the primary initiator, because he's, like you said, he's the second best passer. It's fine. Olynyk used to do that for us, so why don't we try that and see how that works? Keontae, we know Keontae would be taking the most, he would have the 30 shots instead of Collins, but let somebody else try. But I just felt the roles were reversed with Sexton today, which didn't make a ton of sense. Kyle didn't get any time at all, which didn't make a ton of sense. Other than maybe you're just like, look, we're not giving Collins any time at all. So when, now we're playing him, let him just play as much as he can. Maybe that was the strategy. And I get that, right? You haven't let the guy play for a week and a half. So when you do let him play, let him gun away. And that's probably fair, because you've been sitting him down. But still, it just seemed completely out of sync today. But I'm thrilled that they fought back, right? They really fought back and made a game of it and got Boston nervous. And honestly, I don't think it matters if Tatum, my view of Tatum. There's a handful of players I think are the most overrated in the league. Tatum's on my list. Every year he's on my list. 35% three-point shooter, good rebounder at 8 a game. Decent, but there's nothing spectacular there. Turnover machine, not high assists, not a fantastic defensive player. I don't understand that the top 100 where you put him in the top 5. I do not understand that. So to me, I'm not taking away that he's not a very good player, but I don't think it would have completely changed that they would have blown us out if Tatum would have played.
Yeah, I'd say the Boston Celtics are more like that Detroit team with Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton. That was like a collective unit that was pretty good, but there weren't really any outstanding, awesome players on that team. And I would say that this Boston Celtics team more resembles that team than the 1980s Boston Celtics with McHale and Parrish and Ainge and Bird and that roster of just fantastic talent. Okay, well, the box score tonight, like we said, is a bit strange, with John Collins getting 34 minutes and taking 30 shots and 2 free throws. That's obviously a lot of field goal attempts for a Jazz player. 30 is a big number for any player. It just is. And Collin Sexton still had a decent night in terms of field goal attempts with 16. But the 13 assists for Collin is obviously, like I said, I don't know if that's a career high, but I think there's a really good chance that it is. And the other players on the team, the other guy I really want to point out is Sensabaugh shot 8 for 11 from the field and 5 for 7 on 3 in 25 minutes of playing time. But he also had 4 rebounds and 5 assists and only 1 turnover. So he really, across the board, he put up really nice numbers. There were no downsides to his box score tonight. Yeah, you can always nitpick at his defense. It's going to be a thing. But in terms of the box score tonight, he filled it out, and he was really impressive. And without him, the Jazz would have been blown out, because his shooting is really what got the Jazz back into the game.
Yeah, when you have a team a team where very few players play defense, it's hard to criticize Sensabaugh. Yeah. Agreed. It's an issue. It's an issue that needs to be addressed if he wants to stay in the NBA and stay on the Jazz. but it's hard on the Jazz team, it's hard to single them out. We got so many guys that don't try, on the defensive end. But I noticed that too about Brice is, it wasn't just the zeros, which was great. And Cody Williams, same thing, bound on assists in 16 minutes. I thought that was great, right? I mean, the thing with Cody is he hasn't been, rebounding at all. He hit a 3-pointer and he got some rebounds, and he shows flashes of some skills. So those are the two guys that really stood out to me as like, man, that's great, right? We need more from those guys. We need other things other than scoring, and they both did it tonight. Let's hope that this is a trend for the rest of the year for them.
Yeah, and Cody is certainly, he really struggled for a long time. He was just brutally bad. But the last couple of weeks or so, he's been a lot better. Yes, he's not a plus player right now, but he's improvement. He's shown improvement. He's improving. And as long as he's improving and he's not dogging it, and I wouldn't say that he's dogging it, but I want to see improvement. And if when he does other things besides just make or miss shots, I'm pleased, because making or missing his shots is not where Cody's going to get playing time right now. That's not going to be his role and how he's going to earn more minutes. I think more defense, rebounding, and hitting an occasional open shot is more or less where Cody can thrive in the short term until roles are become more defined for everybody on the team.
Yeah, I agree. I assume you didn't listen to Locked on Jazz today.
No.
So I made the mistake of listening it today, but Locke's perspective was that there was more troubling signs, or as many troubling signs, about the win in Philadelphia, about the loss in Philadelphia and the loss in Toronto, as there were positive signs. And this is like another example that I do not see eye to eye with his analysis of basketball, because we've talked about 3 players that in our mind have proven to be NBA rotation players. We haven't put 2 of those guys as starters. We haven't put 2 of those guys as stars. And in fact, even with Walker Kessler, we have not identified him as a star yet, although I think you and I both think he will be. We think that highly of Walker Kessler, that we think he will be. But we've seen some flashes with all of these guys that, including Cody Williams, some flashes of some real skills. Does that mean that there's not other things there that are going to keep him from being like a solid NBA player? Of course. Yeah. There's a lot of things still there. Isaiah Collier in the shooting, we've talked about it the whole season. That's not a surprise, but we've seen enough like incredible skills and other things that we're both convinced now that this is an NBA rotation player. But like, he made this comment, like I'm troubled about all these things. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm overly troubled with Isaiah not shooting it. You realize that Brice Sensabaugh last year shot 28% from 3. Okay? Like Collier's like 22%. Now, there's no question Brice is a better shooter than Collier, but Brice this year is high 30s. Now, why? Because he was a rookie and he really struggled, right? He didn't feel comfortable. If Isaiah goes and busts his butt this summer, and then probably the next summer too, he can learn to shoot. Will he learn to shoot? None of us know, right? But we've seen enough with his speed, his toughness, his innate ability to pass, that we're excited about it. Like, I don't see all these troubling signs with these players. And what's the troubling sign with Flip? Like, I ask you, Boris, what is the troubling sign with Flip? That you're not convinced that he's an NBA player?
I don't see any troubling signs other than his strength. His strength is the only real issue at this point in time. At this point in time, of all the things that's happened with him and how he's played this year, the only real issue is strength. And yes, I would like him to still work on defense on the perimeter, so maybe he can swing to the 3 against certain players. But other than that, there's certainly no troubling signs. I would not look at how Filipowski has played so far this year and say, okay, there are troubling signs. I don't see any. I honestly don't see troubling signs. I see a lack of strength, and that can improve. He's a really young guy. So, and he hasn't been with, an off season with NBA strength and conditioning. And we saw, like we previously talked about, we saw what happened to Taylor Hendricks, and I expect a similar type of route with Filipowski. I don't think Filipowski needs to get into a power position like Taylor is, but I think he obviously needs to continue to stay lean, but gain strength. I mean, that's what I think. More so than anything. Troubling signs, no. Gain strength, yes.
So we don't know this yet, and this is like, do you think Flip's going to be a starter in the NBA?
Yeah,
I do too. I like. Is he guaranteed to? Absolutely not. None of us are saying that. Based upon what we've seen, you and I have seen some unique skills that we think that. The other thing that Locke said is, well, he can't play defense for the center. Okay, we don't think he should be the center.
No,
like, guess
not,
what?
Yeah.
On the same team, we got a guy inch taller that plays power forward named Markkanen, who also is not a center, and he's an inch taller without shoes. We saw that with Nowitzki. There's a lot of guys that are like very big that are 7-footers, Jaren Jackson, that don't play center and don't have the skills to play center. I don't think there's any question. Flip, his main role is not to be a center. That's not a negative. You get a guy that big that can play power forward, or you've even said small forward against slower small forwards. That's where his role is. I mean, that's his skill set. So, like, I'm look, you've got to come up with content every day. I get that, but I got to tell you, I do not see eye to eye with a lot of the things that he says, and I find them, when you and I are like, we're excited, like, honestly, we're excited right now with the skills some of these guys is showing, and then I like listen to that today. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what game is he watching that I'm not watching?
Yeah, in all honesty, I would say if Kyle Filipowski gained so much weight that he could play center, that would worry me more so, because that means that he's slowing himself down. In all honesty, he's slowing. I don't want to see him slow himself down. If he's gained enough weight that where he's going to bang with all these guys playing center, that's not his game. I mean, he's a really good ball handler for his size too. Really good. And we see him. He has ball skills. He can do a lot of things with the ball in his hands. Center is not it, and we've said that previously. No, he's not a center. So anybody who's claiming, well, he worries me because it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play center. Well, yeah, that's because he's not a center. He never was a center. I mean, Kevin Garnett, I still wouldn't want him playing center. He's a power forward, and he's longer than Filipowski, and he was certainly stronger than Filipowski. Kevin Garnett was not a center. He's a power forward. I mean, David Locke never played basketball. He doesn't understand basketball. That's why I don't listen to that guy. End of story.
Yeah. Well, for us, and we hope people are listening to us, there's so few outlets if you're outside of the Bay Area or outside of the Utah to listen to jazz, passionate jazz people. So I do listen because I just want to hear people talking about the team I love, that I grew up loving, etc. But we just don't see eye to eye on it, honestly. And I'm not saying like everybody's a homer on their team. Like, oh yeah, we got these guys that are going to be all-stars. No, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, this box score you have on the screen right today, 3 years from now, half those players are not going to be on the team anymore. Mm-hmm. I get that. And it's the young guys. We're not going to hit everyone on the young guys. But I think in this last draft, I think we've hit on 2 of 3. And we're all still hoping for the 3 of 3. Now, does that mean that Isaiah is going to be the starting point guard? I don't know. Let's see how his shot develops. Let's see how his turnovers go down. But I got to tell you, if I want a guy that pushes the ball up the court and can bowl somebody over, there's very few guys I'm going to pick over Isaiah Collier. And those are like unique skills. And that's why today, like, why was he not playing point guard? Like, okay, I don't get it.
Yeah, another reason why tonight could have been a bit disjointed was Svi played 23 minutes, and tonight, obviously, he's going back to Boston. He's getting his championship ring and all that stuff. So, and obviously, he's going to play going back to Boston. So, he got outsized minutes just because it's the situation where we are in Boston, and so that could have been a bit of the messiness of the game in itself. So I want to throw that out there, that it's not that Hardy was trying to reward the guy who got a championship last year with the Celtics, which I understand that, in all honesty.
I do too. And actually, if Hardy did that for him, thank you, Hardy, for doing that. Because he seems like a good guy. He works hard. This is a game we didn't want to win anyhow. So yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Do you have anything else on the box score?
No.
Flip to scores of tonight. There's a really interesting result tonight. Look at that.
Wow.
Charlotte Hornets won.
Yeah, in Miami. Wow.
In Miami, 105, 102. So
yeah, that's great.
It's not only, yeah, I mean, wow. This is a huge win for Utah Jazz and their tanking efforts, because for those that don't know, and we say the same thing, so I'm sure most people that are listening know this, is that if you're the worst seed, you're the worst record, that you're guaranteed to be no worse than the 5th pick. If you're the second worst, you're guaranteed to be no worse than the 6th pick. If you're the 3rd seed, it's the 7th pick. And I got to tell you, after this season, if we're 3rd and we end up with the 7th pick because the odds are against us, and the Jazz always lose on odds, whether that's a conspiracy or otherwise, we always lose on odds. We drop to the 7th seed, we're not happy at all, right? But if we're not going to get to the 5th, but honestly, I'd be disappointed with the 6th, but every one of those slots matters, so it's huge. We want to end up with behind Washington. We're not going to catch Washington, but we got to knock out Charlotte. So it's a really big win tonight.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic to see that. I had no idea. I didn't look at the results yet. So that is really good news. That's a really good end to the night, I think. A positive to end the night on. All right. Well, do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
All righty. Well, we will close this one out and call it a night, and we will talk to everybody after the next game. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, and you can also follow us on X, and we will talk to everybody after the next game, if not before that. So good night, everybody.